Hello, friends. I'm Tara Bachland with the Weight-Free Wellness Podcast, a refreshing wellness podcast. Today's guest is Jon Bachland. He's a former professional racer, martial artist, and shares a lot of perspective from his years as a business owner. And he's my loving hubby. We're discussing how to help a loved one to be healthy. Since he has done this with and for me for a number of years, he has some great perspective on this topic. You'll find resources mentioned in this podcast in the show notes at weightfreewellness.com. Check out episode 1. There you will also find some great promotions we have going on in the months of September and October. We have cool stuff like free and discounted wellness products from me and guests that we've had on the program. You'll also find links to connect with us on social media because we love hearing from you, and a couple ways to support this refreshing wellness podcast, like the Weight-Free Wellness store, a click-through Amazon link, and if you just tell a friend that you like this podcast, that means a great deal to us. So huge thanks to you. One last note, as you might have noticed, this is the beginning of our podcast, so if it seems like it's a little wobbly and the wheels might fall off, just kind of bear with us a little bit. We're working out the little glitches, and soon enough we will be smooth sailing. Thanks for listening and enjoy. So here we are on the Weight-Free Wellness Podcast.
Yes.
I'm glad to see that you're excited to be here.
I'm
Jon.
done waiting. We got to start.
Well, it's been a long time waiting because we've talked about podcasting basically since it kind of came into existence.
Long time.
Yeah, and all kinds of ideas from health and wellness to marriage stuff.
And I always thought I would be the one to start with my own podcast, but it's you.
Well, so here we go. But I am having you on regularly as a guest because I think that, you're obviously integral. Maybe it's not so obvious, but to me it's obvious that you're integral to my development, my daily life. And I want to include you because Weight-Free Wellness really developed in a lot of ways because of you. And this is actually, you don't know the topic.
I don't want to take the blame for that. What did I do?
Well, you'll find out. It's not such a bad thing. But you don't know what the topic of today's interview is.
That's right. Oh, sorry. We can bleep that out.
Now I'm going to put in the timer where I need to bleep. So,
I'll watch my boyish ways.
Yes, please do. The objective is to keep Weight-Free Wellness Podcast very clean because I want people to be able to listen to it in the office if they
clean
can
diet, clean mind, clean relationships, clean language.
The kids may be in the car and you're trying to
I get that.
Put good things into your life, and you want to have good examples that you can have your kids listen to also. And so that is an objective of mine, is to make this an overall wellness podcast.
You don't want any of that in there.
Right, so
right.
Keep it clean. No inferences either. There's a new word that you teach your kids.
Word
too.
of the day, inference.
Inference. It's a good one, actually.
Is it inference or is it inference?
I don't know. Don't make me look. I want to look it up.
I'll do it. You keep talking. I'll look it up.
I so want to look it up.
I'm your tech guru right here.
So
How do you spell that?
Well, that would actually help to know
the pronunciation.
how to say it.
Yeah.
So,
inference.
This is not the first time you will be hearing my cat Starry.
Yep.
Or Star.
She's gonna go knock the camera over.
Yeah. So you can actually watch Weight-Free Wellness Podcast as well.
INFERENCE.
So inference.
Inference.
Oh, it actually puts in parentheses that
yeah.
E, so you can kind of gloss over it.
What are you doing up here, huh? Are you gonna block my mic noise here?
Yeah, everybody wants to participate here. I don't know if you'll hear from John's cat. She's a little bit quieter.
Maggie's not here yet.
Yeah,
no.
she's not the superstar like my star Kitty is.
Like the stealth star.
So, I'll try to keep things on track here again. So, I didn't inform you what this...
Inference, a conclusion reached on the basis of evidence and reasoning. Word of the day.
It's a good word. Inference.
Inference.
Yes. Good one.
Can we stick there?
you did not know the topic of this
I still don't.
podcast. You
Yes.
still don't know the topic. And the idea is, sometimes when I invite you on to my podcast, it will just be to converse about some topics that maybe we've discussed on other podcasts. And sometimes we may have just one specific topic. And as I've pondered what would be helpful to the weight-free wellness theme, in most of my experience from talking to people and helping people with their health and wellness, people are dealing with their own health and wellness issues. It is not so often that I get to talk with the people who are in the environment and are maybe trying to help the people who are coming to me for help.
Right.
And that's a very unique position. And I thought that this would be a great topic to talk to you about because you were so integral in me developing a really healthy wellness lifestyle. And so this will get into some of our history, and I would like it to be a podcast about how do you help someone that you care about so much with their health and wellness issues. So to go back, I was not experiencing health issues that were life-threatening per se in an acute sense, but I was experiencing health issues that were definitely detracting from my lifestyle. I couldn't do certain things, and I certainly wasn't thriving in life. And the thing is I didn't really know it, because I had health issues from such a young age that it was normal for me. And it wasn't until I met you, and you met me, on that magical day,
Yes.
that I started realizing, I could feel a lot better than I do. And that was really a great turning point for me. Would you like to jump in at any point?
Certainly.
So maybe a little bit of background. We have been together for 16 years now.
Yep.
We did meet, I was an exchange student for a year in Brazil, and I was taking capoeira lessons, which is like a dance style martial art. And when I came back, I wanted to continue doing something like that, but I had a really hard time finding something locally. I lived in a suburb of the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul area, and didn't really want to drive the 40 minutes to Minneapolis to do something like that. So I searched for months, and one day I was visiting with a friend, and I met this friend's sister, and I saw that she had these scabs on her elbows. And I don't know what piqued my curiosity, but I was like, where did you get those, and where can I get some?
They just looked real attractive or enticing.
There was probably
You figured she must have done some kind of sport to get those.
And she must be learning something really cool. I honestly don't know why I was so intrigued, but it's probably the same characteristic that makes me curious and want to talk to people like on a podcast, and I'm excited to interview so many people. So anyways, I asked her, and she told me about your school. I went there shortly after, and...
My martial arts school.
Yeah, your martial arts school. And so I remember going in and saying that I had done capoeira, and you said, well, one of the martial arts that we teach here is...
Well,
or maybe
you
want to tell
Yeah,
them.
you said, I'm looking for something like capoeira. I can't find it anywhere. And I said, oh, you love Thai boxing. That's just like capoeira.
Yes. And me and my naivete, I was like, oh, yes, that sounds like I would love it.
Well, I was a instructor and business owner of a small school, and anything to get students, right? And people come in and they try things and they learn that they like them, but if you try to explain them, that was perfect because you had something in your mind that you were looking for. And if you hadn't liked Thai boxing, you could just leave. It's not that big a deal. But I figured if you tried Thai boxing, you would like it just as much as you like capoeira. And you spent a really long time, now 15 years doing Thai boxing and martial arts and doing that kind of thing. So it worked.
Yeah.
Worked for you, worked for me.
It did all work out, yes. Literally and figuratively work out. So, yeah, and you know what's interesting is actually through Thai boxing that I really started to understand how out of shape I was. Thai boxing, if you don't know what it is.
Well, yeah, give yourself more credit than that. I've trained professional athletes, and they have a hard time doing Thai boxing correctly because they're not trained for it. So yeah, it is fatiguing and stressful in the beginning. It doesn't have to be, but you dived right in. You would ask me at the end of class, what else could I do? And I would say 100 kicks per leg on the heavy bag, and you'd go right over to the heavy bag and start kicking. And it was right after class. And so your enthusiasm and your drive took you to the level where all of a sudden your stamina, it couldn't go with you, but you kept going, and then you'd run downstairs to the bathroom and throw up and come back up and
my drive outperformed my stamina.
Right. Yeah, your cardiovascular system was not prepared for your mental enthusiasm.
Well, showing off to a really cute instructor is quite motivating.
It's not a good reason to go to martial arts class.
It's a good reason to stay, but that was rather.
I suppose you did marry him.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it was really through that experience granted, I'll give myself credit that I was training harder than I realized, even now that I was. But still, it gave me a totally different perspective of even how maybe I could perform someday. And it's not that I was wanting or trying to be a superior athlete or compete anywhere. It's just I wanted to have personal performance, to feel good. And at that point, it wasn't as much about looking good. I had already come to the point in my life that I valued feeling good more than looking good.
Well, and you also looked around the class and said, okay, look at all these people in here doing this, and I want to do it at least as good as they're doing it, because that's what people in a class compare themselves to, or the people around them generally. As we always say, it's best to compare yourself to yourself and what you did the day before, the week before, and how you're getting better. But the standard is all around you. When you can hardly kick 3 rounds and there's people in there doing 10, 15, 16 rounds, you're like, oh man. And a round, for those people that don't know, is 3 minutes long with a minute rest in between. So. And
you're kicking and punching and jumping and
kneeing and elbowing and getting thrown around by the whole person holding the pads and getting punched and kicked at by the person holding the pads. So that's all an agreement between the what we would call the fighter and the trainer, back and forth. If somebody, I don't want to scare people away from Thai boxing or martial arts.
Right.
You don't walk into a gym and get beat up. It's all an agreement how far you're willing to go. So.
Yeah, it's a well-controlled environment. Yours was a very good environment for someone like me who's not a very big woman. And
you were kind of a neophyte, yeah.
Very, very much. There's another word of the day.
You're a little green. You were kind of fluorescent green.
I was that new, huh?
A little bit.
Kind of neon, huh? Yes. Oh, that's okay. So that was, obviously our beginning. That was my beginning into I would say a true wellness path. I had been trying some things before that, but without any guidance or understanding. And so definitely meeting you, having come from a professional racing background, very experienced martial artist, that you had experience that I could really gain from. And
I was actually a professional martial artist too.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Because I was getting paid.
Yeah.
Didn't mean I was that good, but.
Good. I thought you were awesome.
Well.
Yeah, I still think you're pretty amazing. So.
Should we shut this down for a little bit?
I think we can go a little bit longer. We'll try to make it last.
That's what I'm saying.
So the idea is, we've been together 16 years. So here's the idea. Quick synopsis. You'll learn about us over time, but a quick synopsis. We met in January of 2000, the year 2000.
Yeah.
We started dating in June.
Yep.
And we got married in November of that same year.
Yep.
And the truth is, when people are like, wow, That's really fast. We're both like, when you know. There's no doubt.
Yeah, it was a whirlwind romance. We came together quickly and grew together. I think the best thing that we did is we got together and we stayed together. We didn't go through a long dating phase, which I think helps a relationship if both people are willing to grow together and to make accommodations for the other person and to make your investments in the other person. Some people would call them compromises, but I would call them investments.
You're saying that a short dating phase helps you do that? Well, definitely the commitment.
I think so.
There's an absolute commitment much earlier.
I think if you have to date somebody for 3 to 6 months, and that's short, and if you have to date them longer than that to try and figure out if you want to be with them, you shouldn't go past that point. You should find somebody else.
Yeah. So we'll get into that more in other podcasts, but this is so we got married rather quickly, have continued to develop throughout our marriage. There's been a number of phases. It's interesting looking back. I think we both could name some phases. And really, truly coming to this point, just speaking of wellness, you have seen a lot of phases in me. And the whole idea of this podcast is not to be all about me.
No, and I came into the relationship with a son.
Yeah.
I had full physical custody of my son. And so you came into the relationship with me and my son. He was 12, and he's now 27, so 28 soon.
Yeah.
So that's one of the major phases.
Definitely. Yeah, and going through phases with your kids creates phases in your marriage.
Yep.
So it's a good topic. We can talk about that someday.
Absolutely.
Too. So like I was saying, the Weight Free Wellness podcast is not all about me, but it definitely comes from my history and coming through wellness challenges and what I've learned along the way, and just taking those principles and hopefully putting those out there, interviewing some very interesting people to help other people who are in these similar stages.
And I think your name, Weight Free Wellness, is pretty awesome, because in the beginning, when you came into my school, you were asking me a lot about fitness. You were asking me a lot about nutrition. And you didn't know what to ask or what not to ask. So you were kind of an open book, and you were really willing to write a new book. And at one point you asked me, you said, I want to get more trim, I want to get stronger. And I was like, well, you're in the right place. I mean, this is the place where you will get fit automatically, and you will get stronger automatically, because you're going to be lifting 8-pound Thai pads, holding for another person. You're going to be going over to the weights you're going to be lifting, because I'm going to prescribe it to you. And you asked about getting trimmer, and I showed you where your hips were, and I said everything should line up right here, and you just went for it. And you, at one point, you had said to me something about you lost some weight. You said, I had lost 3 pounds or something, and I ignored you. And you said it again. You said, I lost 3 pounds. And I said, it doesn't matter. So truly, weight-free wellness is the best way to get well and be healthy, is to not worry about your weight.
Right.
But to take your body image and to take your size and the things that you want to do, and make sure you can do. If you want to go rock climbing, you go rock climbing. If you want to lift weights, you lift weights. Martial arts, you do martial arts.
Well, the idea is your body gives you signs. You intrinsically know if you're healthy or not. Right. And as you get healthier, you actually, your barometer, your gauge for how healthy you feel gets more sensitive. And that trigger food that you used to eat, that used to be just taste so amazing, that is a processed food, that it doesn't go into your body and actually help build health. One day after working out and eating healthy food, you don't even want to eat that anymore. No. You don't even, it doesn't even taste good in your mouth.
Your mind automatically rejects it. Your physicality and your mental state come together, and your body rejects it. Your mind rejects it. You might still crave it a little bit, but you find yourself seriously questioning, should I get this? Should I do that? So keep working out, everybody.
It's tremendously rewarding.
Yeah.
Because you don't even have to fight with that craving anymore. What you realize it's really a thought. Mm. It's like when we've done the Master Cleanse, the lemonade juice cleanse, where you basically, now, if you're listening to this, you are listening
Don't
to this.
Don't describe it, just say what happened.
Well, so we're doing a cleanse, and it's a very simple cleanse, so you're not actually making food.
Right.
And we just realized how much we were going to the refrigerator by habit. Mm-hmm. It wasn't even because we were hungry, but you have in your mind, I have to eat.
Certain times of the day, you take that time to sit down and eat, and when you don't have to eat, it really messes with you, and you find out you have, I have about an hour and a half to 3 hours extra per day. And then for a week and a half, we weren't even grocery shopping. So we had another couple of hours every 3 days where we weren't going grocery shopping. It was amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's get back to the topic a little bit about how do you support someone when they're going through health challenges? And, you know, there are so many different kinds of health challenges. I don't know if that question is too vague.
I think we laid out quite a foundation on how spouses can help each other, because anybody listening to this can hear how we work together, that we do work together. And you know, there's a lot of, in the early days, there's a lot of suggestions by me and a lot of things that I would show you and things that I would tell you, you could do this and they would do this. You know, I never made you do anything. And then later in our relationship, as you became much more knowledgeable, you brought things to the table, such as the herbalism and the natural wellness things of say, homeopathics and things like that. And so I listen to you too now.
Right.
Did I go off topic?
No. I actually thought you would talk more. Usually you
yeah,
do.
Normally it's funny that Tara's doing this podcast, because normally it's me that's the talker.
Right. So it's a little changing of the shifting.
So how would I help somebody? Over the years, I've tried to help thousands of people. And the only people that I've ever been able to help are the people that come to me and say, I'm looking for an answer to this. Or how would you do this? Or I enjoy training martial arts, but I can't get over this hurdle, this hump. I can't do this. And so maybe it was kicking flexibility. Maybe it was stretching. Maybe it was weight training. A person, they were too tired after class, so they didn't lift weights, but then they started going downhill in a different area. So I would tell them to modulate. You know, I'd help them modulate their training. Only do an hour and a half of martial arts, don't do 3 hours, and then hit the weights. You know, or get on a bike, or stretch. Here's a stretch for your psoas. Do some yoga, do some of this, you know, and just hang off that bar for a while. Decompress your back. And those people would do it. You came to me and said, how do I get better at this? And I said 100 kicks per leg on the bag. I was surprised that you did it. You know, but those are the only people you can help, are the people that are truly looking for it, and then they have to apply it.
But also, you weren't my only teacher. You actually at times encouraged me to go different places and to different people.
Well, I learned early on, there's going to come a point in time when you are not, and even you, and we can talk about this in a later podcast, aren't going to listen to me. Even if...
That never happened.
Right? It happens, and you know, we started out as teacher and student. Then we became boyfriend and girlfriend. Then we became husband and wife. Then you brought a bunch of things to the table to teach me. And I'm open to what you have to teach, and you're open to what I have to teach. But there are those points where you clash, or you go, well, why didn't, you know, most of it's ego. People get stuck in, well, I should know that, you know. I'm an attorney, or I'm a doctor, or I'm a person of knowledge, I should know this. And they have a hard time accepting it. Between husband and wife, maybe I did something the day before that you didn't really appreciate, and maybe you didn't say anything to me, and then when I suggest something, you're like, rah. You know, you got that little like, you know, I know that, I don't have to listen. Excuse me.
So if you
and
saw
you don't.
if you saw that coming up, or if I was in a prolonged period of that, is that when you would suggest someone else, or were there times that you would?
Well, you remember how early I suggested go to yoga, you know, and all of my other. I had a class of instructors that I was teaching when you and I met, and I would encourage them. You know, if somebody showed an interest in boxing, we taught a lot of boxing, but we weren't a boxing gym. We were mixed martial arts before mixed martial arts existed, and that was through the Inosanto, Dan Inosanto, Rick Fay martial art lineage, and I would suggest they go to a boxing gym. With you, I suggested you go to yoga, and you went and did your 500-hour training under a certain teacher and enjoyed it and still do it, and brought back yoga to me. I did a lot of yoga stretches, a lot of yoga poses, but I didn't do yoga.
Yeah, I learned a tremendous amount. It was really my foundation for understanding physiology and anatomy and body movement. So yeah, it was very, very, very powerful and very timely.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just because I was being a stinker that you would make me go to another. You would never make me do anything, but you would encourage me to do certain things.
Yeah. I encouraged before that point of not wanting to listen happens. I did that. I do that still with all my students. I encourage them to go learn from somebody else.
So you tend to teach and coach people outside of martial arts also. It can be business and life. It's just kind of your nature.
And I tell people to teach.
Yeah.
You know, as soon as they've done something for a good 6 months to a year and they feel very competent at it, the best thing they can do is teach it.
So my next question was, what would you suggest to someone if, let's say their spouse or someone close to them is going through health issues, but you yourself are not as experienced in health and wellness, but you want to help or encourage them?
This happens all the time. People can suggest books. They can suggest sitting down and talking with a couple like you and me. And we have that happen all the time. We've had it happen countless times. It's not good to ambush. It's not good to say, oh, let's go to this barbecue, and oh, by the way, we're sitting down with Jon and Tara, and they're going to teach you about health and wellness.
It doesn't work out for anybody.
No, it's not. Well, the first thing you and I will do is go, well, this meeting's done.
Yeah.
Let's eat some barbecue. I honestly don't know how to help people that aren't looking for it. Honestly.
Yeah, that is I agree.
Yeah, you can. Somebody's walking by on the street smoking a cigarette. You can't tell that person to stop smoking because it's bad for their health. That's what it's like trying to tell a family member or a friend that isn't asking that they should stop. And that's not fair. It's not kind, and it's not fair because they don't know that you're going to do it. So
do you give up entirely, or are there still things that are principles you live by?
Well, if it's husband and wife, okay, there have been times when I've been working so much I'm just not down to do anything else, right? I come home, I got to get on the computer for a little while, and I got to work maybe 4 hours worth, and then I don't feel like doing anything, and you're like, hey, let's go for a walk. I'd love you to take me for a walk, and that entices me that I care about you. I want to do things with you. If you want to do something, and let's go for a short walk. And that short walk could turn into an hour because we're talking, and I get out and I find, I do want to do something. But sometimes I'm so focused. So if it's a spouse can do that.
You get great quality time too.
Right.
A time away that is comparable to nothing else really when you're just out in your neighborhood, or you're out on a walking trail and you have that time together, not distracted by other things.
A spouse can be a good example. I don't think spouses should compete. Personally, that's me. There's nothing you and I, unless we're going to play Sudoku or something. I'm 220 pounds and you're 115, and are we going to grapple with each other? We do train martial arts together.
I can't even thumb wrestle with you. It's not fair.
Excuse me. You got to get me when I have a sprained thumb. But a spouse could be an example. A spouse could suggest things. A friend can encourage, hey, come on out, let's go do this. Maybe, hey, let's go mountain biking. I'm only going to go for 15 minutes, instead of, most guys will be, teasing their friends if they can't keep up, or, calling them names. And if you have somebody that you really care about that you want to help, you want to stay away from that little competition thing, I think.
Not the egging on kind of
attitude. Egging on turns into competition, which then kind of feels like putting somebody down. And I'm not against competition, but if you're trying to help somebody become healthy, it's not like a game of basketball. You're not competing. I'm healthier than you. It's not like that.
So I'm going to get a little bit more personal in the sense of getting a guy's point of view. I've heard plenty of women say, I just wish my husband would eat healthier and do this and do that. In your opinion, as a guy, knowing other guys, what is it that, you've already kind of alluded to what women can do for their husbands and saying, hey, let's go for a walk, and kind of being enticing in that way. But what are some things similar to that a woman could do that actually help? And what are some definite no-nos from what you've experienced or seen?
Well, you just opened a can of worms. I see we're at already 30 minutes for your first podcast, but I think we should talk about this later, because when you get into why a person is doing things, you get into dependencies, you get into addictions, you get into nutrition problems and issues. And why does somebody come home and stuff their face with the cake that they see in the fridge? Because they spent all day working and their brain is depleted of everything it needs to function, and they see that sugar and they go for it. And a lot of people can't stop, and literally cannot stop themselves. And so that level of addiction and that level of not taking care of yourself nutritionally is a series of podcasts. As we hear experts on podcasts talk all the time, and they could go on for days about what's going on in that person. And so you gotta take it away from the, you're not eating healthy, because at the time the person's eating that, obviously they don't care. They know, but they don't care because they gotta get whatever it is they're after.
One thing that you pointed out early in our relationship.
Why do kids eat dirt?
Well, yeah, that's another topic.
Right.
That there's actually nutrients,
right.
and that little babies, infants actually absorb through their skin.
Right.
So that's another. We have so many topics to cover.
Well, humans do too. Where do women put progesterone cream?
Yeah, we absorb through our skin.
Yeah, you don't drink it.
So what you were saying earlier brought to mind another thing that you talked about early on in our relationship that triggered my mind when you say that, the person who's stuffing their face with cake, you don't say, hey, don't eat that, because they're obviously already doing that, and few people need to be told
right.
that that's maybe not so helpful.
That half a cake isn't good for you.
Right.
Well, duh.
Good way to put it. So early on we had a discussion about how to or not to talk about each other's food, or even other people's food.
And never while they're eating it, yeah.
Right. And that was like, it was such a kind of a mind-blowing statement for me. I think it was, in a way, an introduction for me to the quantum realm of what you say can manifest. And
well, if I say I love you, you get warm feelings. If I say the opposite of that, you're not going to feel good at all. And you probably even felt something a little negative when I said, if I say the opposite of that.
Yeah.
You feel it, and I didn't even do anything. So that is the power. So if you directly attack somebody with your words about something they're doing, and they eat something and you tell them that could give you cancer or whatever you say to them, that's not healthy, that's going to make you fat, and it's sitting in their stomach.
Right.
and they internalize that thought and they feel bad about it, their body chemistry changes, and it could be bad for them. So yeah, I think it's extremely important never to say anything bad to anybody about what they're eating while they're eating it, or even a cigarette while they're smoking it. You know, you want to intend the best for everybody that you encounter and you come in contact with, and after they're done, you can have a talk with them, or after the next day, you know, or maybe you should have tossed out that cake and you should have put something in the refrigerator that they like, or brought it out for them when they got home and made it available. You know, I made you your favorite buffalo burgers, or I made you your favorite T-bone steak, or
Right. Sometimes you have to do that, to put things out there that are enticing in a healthy way. But I've since chosen to take that a step further, and when I see someone eating something or consuming something, or maybe you smoking a cigarette or something, you know, it's just my opinion that that's not healthy for them. They may just be enjoying the heck out of themselves,
Right.
and actually having great things going on inside. The truth is, I don't know. So what I try to do is overcome my thoughts of, oh my gosh, they are just hurting their bodies and destroying their bodies, and I actually choose to send a blessing that, you know, what they're doing actually is helpful to them in some way.
And that's one of the best things I think you can do, because the instant that you have the feeling about what somebody else is doing is a fraction of time. Even if they eat cake for 2 hours, that's only 2 hours out of their life. That's not going to affect the rest of their life. So to spin it towards the positive, or to let them get over the hump. They might have had the worst day they've ever had in their life, and you don't know that. And the best thing they could do is sit down and enjoy whatever bad thing for them that they're enjoying, because their entire day was the worst day of their life. And that thing that's bad for them is actually the best thing that happened to them that day. So what are they thinking about that? It goes into their body, and it's positive for them.
Few people need more help experiencing more shame.
Exactly.
And
they know.
It's not our duty to go around shaming people, in my opinion.
Yeah. You just synopsized that very wonderfully.
Well, thank you.